And now our review of the first episode of the most anticipated Star Trek episode in years, Strange New Worlds, after this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and I had to say I had a tingle when I heard Pike's voice doing the classic opening of Star Trek, Space, the Final Frontier, and so on. It worked out well. The opening credits were impressive. We see how the Enterprise warp jumps, the new design of the Enterprise, which is not far from the movie version of the ship. Of course, it's all done in CG, but well done. The interior of the ship is wonderful. I have to say that I love the engine room. It has elements of the TNG engine room along with elements of the motion picture engine room, the forced perspective, and I do like the dilithium chamber. It looks like a real warp engine if you knew what a warp engine is supposed to look like. At any rate, the characters as well. We've noticed some people that we hadn't heard about, like Kyle, who was one of the engineers and usually a transporter chief in the original series, and here is a transporter chief in this. So, of course, played by a different actor, but certainly the character endures the same way that Uhura and Spock and Chapel do. Ethan Peck was probably better at playing Spock than he was the first time around, and his relationship with Pike is well established, not as close as with Jim Kirk, but certainly with Pike. We have also a reimagining of Nurse Chapel. She is a civilian this time who is contracted to work on the ship and is specializes in DNA. And so we see some of her talents there, and also see her tongue-in-cheek way of approaching the role, which I very much like. Also, Dr. Mbanga, you may not remember him from the original series. I think he was only on 1 or 2 episodes. In one where he is in slapping Spock around. You may remember that. So this is a legacy character here. We also have, of course, number 1, Rebecca Romijn returns as that. She is the main driver of this particular episode. We won't get into any spoilers on this, but she plays her part well. Pike himself is what we might have expected, disturbed by the fact that he's seen his future, his accident, and being confined to this chair that we saw in the menagerie. This is something that makes him doubt whether he even wants to return to Starfleet, and second guessing himself on whether he should act or not act based on what he knows. You've probably seen in some of the previews that Spock, he confides in Spock, and Spock has some words of wisdom for that. We see Pike's quarters, which have, it's set up for entertaining. He apparently is going to do like some of the ancient ship captains during, say, the Revolutionary Napoleonic Wars, where a captain would have crew members invited to his quarters, usually about once a week, and have a meal with the captain. It's something that the senior officers have as kind of a treat, and the junior officer that occasionally is invited to this get a chance to have some FaceTime with the captain. So this is something that goes back into naval tradition. And as a result, the quarters are larger. They have kind of a kitchen setup in there because we've established in this episode that Pike likes to cook. And so there are many things. We also see a rethought of Robert April, who is now an admiral. He was in Star Trek lore the first captain, although that was never official, and he was never in any kind of scenes that I recall. Except in the animated series, which still some people don't consider canon. But at any rate, this is making use of the lore that we know already in Star Trek and using it to their advantage. The bridge looks great. The bridge crew is an affable looking group. I don't have all their names yet, but we'll soon. We already know that they have a crack helmsman. They've got a chief of security who is the Laan Noonien Singh, who is, we know her connection to Khan, perhaps nobody else does. And we have, she is kind of the different one on this. Every Star Trek series has to have someone who is different in some way, has some kind of background that needs to be explored. And she reminds me somewhat in backstory of Tasha Yar. She was raised kind of by herself. It was a tough place that she was at, learned how to fight for herself, things like this, which work for us. Then we have the plot itself, which in this particular episode is about a world at war with itself. And it has a good speech by the captain in it. It has some persuasive elements there. They do some undercover work. It's all very nicely crafted and, of course, complete in a single episode. They'll continue some of the personal stories as the series evolves, but certainly we have the plot, the action, the resolution all in one episode, and it's amazing how refreshing that is to see it. I believe that this is, in fact, what I expected it to be, the crown jewel of Paramount Plus now. So I recommend that you see it. It's worth seeing. The acting is great. The special effects are perfect. You believe that you're on the Enterprise. You believe you're on a ride. And what's better about Star Trek than being on the ride? So why not give us your opinion on the comments below? We will read them and respond. And also subscribe while you're there if you're not subscribed. And click the bell so you know when the next video comes your way. We have yet another that we're releasing of the original series, Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot of the series. And you can see if you watch it this week, you can see kind of the contrast between Pike's approach and Kirk's approach. But we'll talk about that in the next video. So until then, don't go far.